Hello out there, mongoose conservation friends. Hello world. It's author the Meerkat Man, the Mongoose Man, Grant Malcolm McIlrath, and it is 16:05. So there's about an hour and a half to go before sunset. It has been very, very cold over the last few days. Temperatures have been dropping down to 4 degrees at night. And Cucciolina, the dominant female of the Tsebokolodi yellow mongoose group that you can see here, is currently guarding at one of her escape tunnels. And there's one of the entrances, and there's another. Just like the meerkats from the Ungulungu meerkat group, the yellow mongooses, the species is cynictispenicillata, has escape tunnels scattered throughout the territory. All right, that there is a urine scent mark, very briefly. When the tail arches like that only slightly, it's for a urine mark. Of course, these are not wasted just anywhere in the territory. They are specifically put as longer-term scent posts to indicate hormonal changes. Maybe it's the breeding season. It's basically an invitation or a warning to stay out of the territory, depending on who's posting the message. Or as I like to say, as my viewers from many years will know, smellogram or SMSs. Short message systems. I'm going to do a long play video today and we'll see how it goes, giving you the fans of the landscape format with big television sets or tablets, and then I will also cut this into shorts for all of our viewers who enjoy the mobile platforms and vertical format. It takes many hours to upload these videos, usually from the slow bandwidth at the Meerkat Mansion Research Base and accommodation. And you're welcome to visit, of course. You can check the details about that in the comments section. Please do send me comments. I like to answer questions from anybody in the world, and your questions may be included in future videos. Of course, there are over 1,200 videos on the channel, dating back to 2008. All right, that is a longer term scent post. Now you can see the difference. The tail is arched much more, and this is actually a dung sample being produced on what we call a midden or latrine. There you go. So a long-term scent post, and then it's off to the next burrow entrance. Now we may see some maintenance. Usually I don't film in the middle of the day like this, but because it is cooler weather, activity periods that usually would not be seen in the middle of the day, it can be 45 degrees centigrade or more, and the mongooses and meerkats generally simply go into the shade of trees or into the burrows themselves. However, because it is cooler and sunset is coming along a lot sooner as well as we move into the midwinter times in the Meerkat Magic Valley Reserve of the Meerkat Magic Conservation Project, days are shorter, so foraging time is of course critical to get it in as much as possible. So there are fewer breaks, and this is the same with meerkats. Over the day they will sleep later in the morning and only have a short time to get their energy budget for the day. It's not like humans where we can simply go and stock up with food wherever we like. If it rains, mongooses and meerkats here can go without food for the entire day or longer, and then they have to make up for it. And there could be predator scares, stopping them from finding their resources. There could be intergroup interactions. Just a quick point on that. Inter, I-N-T-E-R, between groups. Intra, I-N-T-R-A, in the same group. You can see, as I've mentioned in many of my videos, the difference even in the silhouette. Look at how the shadow, almost the zombie-like cliche of the arms sticking outwards. The meerkat's arms are always held alongside the stomach when they're standing up, whereas almost always when I see the mongooses standing up, their arms stick outwards. I'm going to be going through a lot of different points as we walk along with Cucciolina. She's just busy doing some scent marking at that burrow entrance. And then a bit of vigilance behavior. It's incredible. This is Mongoose Magic Moments right here. as she turns her back on me, over 6 foot of predator. And I have been following this family unit on my private reserve since 2008. Many generations have learned to accept this noisy object, which is myself. And because she can hear me at all times, she doesn't have to constantly look to see where I am. And that is why I'm doing this. It is a technique I learned when I was spending my time with the Meerkats in the Kalahari Desert for 7 years. And of course, since 1993, as a professional nature conservationist, I have been studying small carnivores in particular. That is my speciality, especially the fossorial, the digging mammals. Because unfortunately, they are often out of sight and therefore out of mind, and people don't think there's anything in a hole like that and can plow over it or simply have stock trample it, and they can destroy an entire wildlife hotel. Of course, the sounds I make, as I've explained before, also NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. A shout out to our psychologist friends out there in particular who told me about this way back in early 2000 on a visit with me. And of course, I use associative triggers such as various sounds. There's a scent, and of course, visual in particular, displacement reassurances. If, and you may well see this over the session, Kakulu looks at me, she will look away almost immediately, and this can be measured with every individual. Any moment now she'll watch as I move my hand deliberately. You can see my shadow here. And then I'm going to do a displacement reassurance. Watch what happens when she notices it. I'm not calling now. And I wouldn't call if there was a predator around. We'll just see how I'm moving my hand here. There's a very brief look. That's how quick it is. Brief look at me and I look away again. And this is a displacement reassurance. I have also been fortunate enough to check with chimpanzee in Kibale rainforest in Uganda, the late 90s, and of course many other species know it too. I developed this in the 90s. It is intellectual property, and of course this is well known with meerkats now as I work with them. If they look at me, I can get their attention to something they are familiar with, such as my hand moving, and that's a bit of an auto groom there. Another very brief look at me. Nothing gets past her attention. She's extremely vigilant. She's looking past me, briefly at me. Do you see how quick that was? And then looking away again. Staying near an escape tunnel. She's over 1 kilometer away from one of the nearest sleeping areas. That very brief movement of her head was actually a scent mark. We call it a cheek mark on that bit of vegetation. Another SSMS. So we've seen 3 different kinds here, which is incredible. The urine mark right here at this entrance. The longer term scent mark of dung and urine at the latrine, and then that little cheek mark, and again looking at me, and then a yawn. Now that is a very clear displacement reassurance right there. If you were to collect data, as many researchers have done incorrectly and erroneously, and this is a shout out to all of you out there, you'll know who you are, where you are biasing the data by your very presence and disturbing the animal and then collecting data on, for example, its dispersal and how often it is guarding, but in fact it is guarding because of the observer scaring it all the time. Whereas here, if I start recording the guard, I am not influencing this behavior. So this is objective data collection, and that is the big difference, and this is what takes many, many years to implement my specific intellectual property rights. Associative learning, NLP techniques. When I start working with mongooses and meerkats, I will usually be 200, 300, 400 meters away using Nikon quite often. It's one of my preferences. Telescopes. And it can take me years to get that selective trust, because unlike some people, I will not rush in and simply insert myself into their lives until they fully accept this object in the distance that is not disturbing them, and I build an association with them and they know that that object can be accepted and that it will not actually attack them. Of course, in order to have this kind of interspecies communication, which you see now, you first have to introduce the sounds that I'm making now, for example, and of course hand gestures, and all of which will not be tolerated at all. You cannot simply walk up to a wild yellow mongoose or meerkat and start talking and calling and moving hands. They will disappear long before most people even see them. There's a great difference between tame animals, which show unselective trust. For example, even a dog at somebody's house may know the owner very well, but accept a stranger within moments who is in the area after initially maybe growling or warning that there's an intruder in the territory, and they are tame animals. These, however, are not tame animals, and if I had to move my foot even slightly, and I will demonstrate this briefly, watch what happens. Just that tiny movement, and there's my reassurance she's checking my foot. Now, if I had to try and walk here without doing this, even now she's checking, because this is not something I would usually do without masking it with my sounds. It means she's incredibly attentive of any sound that a predator may make, like a scraping sound, coughing, sneezing, crunching twig, or anything. And that is a demonstration right there. If you had to just simply try and walk up without the correct codes, this codec is much more complex than I'm illustrating out. That's just a very brief look up at the Spreo bicolor, one of the neighborhood watch. That bird is commonly in flocks. It is the pied starling with a white vent rump. Afrikaans call it die wit gat spreeu, which is quite an interesting name. And she looked at it briefly because it could have been alarming, and then there could have been a predator nearby. Everything is part of the neighborhood watch here. The birds are not alarming because I am not a threat. Why am I not a threat, you might ask? Because Cucciolina is clearly not looking at me as if I am a threat. And she is also part of the neighborhood watch. And this allows me, when working with meerkats and mongooses and other animals I've worked with in this way, to get close to extremely shy and secretive animals that would not otherwise tolerate a human anywhere near them. And even if they've never seen me before, because I'm with animals that are already accepted and part of the neighborhood watch that they grow up with, quite commonly in an entire neighborhood, they will look at that cue and then look at me and basically accept my presence. And that, of course, again, is not through being tamed. There's the alarm again briefly, flying off. And then a little autogroom almost certainly here. There we go. That is a displacement behavior right there. And there's a little cheek mark and another cheek mark and another cheek mark. 3 cheek marks in quick succession there. And a bit of auto grooming. Notice how Gakulu is staying close to a sleeping area. There we go. That was calling the other 3 that are tagging behind. Look at that. All right, so there we've now got 4 Spreo bicolor all flying around together, and this is quite common. They are sometimes in flocks around the reserve of 20 plus. So that was where are you, basically that call. It's a grouping call or a flocking call. All right, mouse birds very quickly flying overhead again, not an alarm. The crown plovers, Vanellus coronatus, and the blacksmith plovers, Vanellus armatus, tend to leck. They have an area of territory that they use in that distant field. And if I was walking there, they would be alarming, not at me, they would be alarming at Kakulu. Because she is, of course, a terrestrial predator. And she will be hunting their eggs for sure. Eggs do form a large part of the mongoose and the meerkat diet. I will just punctuate my narration occasionally with different sounds. And more when I believe I need to give them more attention because of something I may have done, a movement, etc. It's learning to differentiate between their natural behaviors, that's a displacement, very briefly again, and something that an observer is actually influencing. Mongoose Magic Moments. Hello friends, I hope you're having a wonderful day today, wherever you may be in the world. Hope you're staying safe. And thank you for your support of all the videos. I really do appreciate the comments and the likes, and especially the shares on social media. It all helps the channel to grow. And we are now, I'm excited to say, as of this morning, I checked, on 1,682,000 views, and it's going up. So soon we'll be on 1.7 million. And that's thanks to you all. You make my videos worth sharing from my archives. I have videos going back to Uganda and the Kalahari Desert, unseen footage that I still wish to edit in the future, but there's a constant arrival of new footage. All right, another straggler and another straggler flying past there. The pied starlings again. All right, in the distance I've just seen an Alanus caeruleus. The Alanus caeruleus is the blowfalk, black-shouldered kite. It is one of the smallest, if not the smallest, bird of prey in this area on the reserve. It has black wingtips and is not a threat to an adult mongoose such as Cucciolina, but she will watch it. I see it flying from one of the distant poles. They will quite commonly hover briefly and then attack mice and lizards and even insects. There it is. There it is. Alanus caeruleus, the black-shouldered kite. There's actually a pair of them breeding at the Meerkat Mansion Research Base. There we go. Oh, it's definitely giving you a beautiful view of it. You never know what might happen on what I call these unedited wildlife documentaries, where we go behind the scenes in science. I hope in the future we will be able to do live streaming from the reserve if the bandwidth improves. It needs to be much, much better than it is now for me to be able to do that. So here's hoping technology catches up in this area. Zoom in a bit more. All right, that's the maximum zoom. All right, let's go back to Gakulu, who's on guard. So, that little bird is not a threat to an adult meerkat either, but it could potentially be a threat to a young pup, meerkat pups, or mongoose babies. Which brings me briefly to something interesting I read, another autogreen briefly there, about the yellow mongoose. The gestation, in my experience, for them is 10.5 to 11 weeks, which is almost identical to meerkats, but there are some accounts of it being 40 to 42 days, which I find very suspect, and then 59 days. So supposedly a bit shorter than meerkats, and with a peak breeding cycle around now, June, July, August, September, and I can confirm October last year, as you will know for those who follow the work I've been doing here. Cucciolina had suckle marks in October last year, around the 20th or so. And then we had the beautiful squeaky Scoia'atalo, the first survivor in over 4 years, being born. So with yellow mongooses, the average litter size is 1 to 2 babies, sometimes 1 to 5. Interestingly, when I do a search on this, there are no records saying 6 young. Now, yellow mongooses have 6 mammae, so it is quite plausible that they could have up to 6 babies. 6 mammae, M-A-M-M-A-E, nipples, inguinal, 2 at the lower section of the abdomen, pectoral, thoracic, the same as meerkats, who also have 6, but meerkats' average litter size is 2 to 4, 4 to 6. And I have seen meerkats with 7 nipples up in the Kalahari Desert, very, very infrequently, and even one with 8. And I see there's another offspring around 2012 to 14, my previous research project up there, documenting another arrival, Octo, who had 8. So, it is possible that meerkats could have up to 8 babies. And of course, if that is not genetically and confirmed through ultrasonography, it could just be a mixed litter of multiple breeding females simultaneously or giving birth within a short time frame, and then people mistake that for, oh, look, that's the runt or the smaller litter. But in fact, it is not even from the same female. We know this happens and has happened in the past. So, Yellow mongooses also have a matriarchal structure. The dominant female is in fact the territorial leader here. Males will come and go. The dominant male, Gakulu Morla, sadly I have not seen him in over 3 months now. And the chances are that his range, as explained to people through Google and the AI assistant there, females' ranges are next to each other but don't overlap, whereas males may have ranges overlapping with 2 or 3 different females. So we may have a family unit develop. I've seen up to 6 at a time here. All right, there's a bit of digging going on. Very briefly, I'm not going to move over and disturb her. If I was to do this, I would definitely be disturbing her. Now I can see the urine mark very clearly, and she just sniffed it briefly there. A darker patch on the soil. It is extremely dry here. We have not had any rainfall in a few weeks again, but the reserve river continues to flow. Let's just take a brief intermission here. I hear an Egyptian goose in the distance causing an alarm. There it is again. Allopotron aegyptiacus. Let's see if we can spot it. There they are, 2 in fact. Call hunts. And they are landing in the distant field there. Yes. Are they going to land? Looks like it. And there we go. Disturbance over. But if we zoom back to Cucciolina here, she went from grooming to being on high alert, because any bird that flies up suddenly could be because of a disturbance from a predator. All right, we're already 21 minutes in. A big shout out to anybody who has watched up to now. I hope you have. Please do let me know where you are from and your name, if you'd like, in the comment section. I do appreciate the support. Now, of course, doing research can be a very, 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 very time-consuming process. In the Kalahari Desert, I would commonly be up by 4 o'clock in the morning and only get back after 9 at night. 13 plus hours of data collection a day on average. Every few minutes, quite often on 5 minutes, there would be an alarm going off, and information about every animal that was being viewed would be entered. The behavior, for example, if this was an alarm right now going off, this would be guarding at burrow. And of course, the animal would have a data code. So, although you know her as Gakulu Cucciolina, this is the Tsebokolodi group. So this is a T for Tsebokolodi. And Gakulu Cucciolina, that would not come into play. She is female 409 from the Tsebokolodi yellow mongoose group. So you put in TF409 GB, guarding at burrow. Now she's still within the close aspect of the burrow. Once she gets over 10 meters away, to keep the data consistent, that would be guarding away from the burrow. In the distance, the Hadida ibis calling Bostrichia hagadash. There's that nasty scientific name again. That sounds like horrendous swear word of some sort. Bostrichia hagadash. There it is calling again. Let's have a look. Ooh, there are many of them nesting up there in the riverbed area. South Africans know this bird very well. It is often the wake-up alarm in many neighborhoods, including cities, and is often not appreciated by many people. But for me, this is just beautiful white noise. The sounds of nature. Let's see the ones flying off in the distance towards this stunning Great Black Mountain Range. Look at that. Oh, it's a magnificent day today. Not even a breath of wind disturbing the vegetation. And I'm glad there isn't any wind, because it is very cold. And today is the first day I'm not wearing a woolen cap when I'm out here. There's another scent mark, very briefly. Once Gakulu Cucciolina decides to move on, we'll follow along. I'm just going to let the video roll. We'll see how long it goes for. Of course, many people are surprised when they visit with me to see just how much can happen in a short period of time, and you never know what might happen next. We could have a snake encounter. There are many snakes active on days like this. Even though it is cooler in the morning, they are still hunting for food so they can estivate, basically save their energy. It's almost like hibernation for mammals. And of course, mongooses and meerkats are using burrow systems when the snakes will go into the burrow system. So encounters are very, very high. Notice there's no alarm from Gakulu to that Hadida ibis's call, because it is not an alarm call. It is a contact call. In the distance I hear Plosius vellatus, the masked weaver. They make beautiful pendulum nests. The dominant males will make their nest higher up in a tree or on reeds, and the lower ranking males will make their nest lower down in the vegetation. And these are used again and again and again every year. Not the same nest. These are torn down and made anew every time, but the nesting site itself. They have the entrance to the nest underneath the nest to try and prevent snakes from getting in. And females are incredibly particular. If the nest is not suitable, the male will destroy the nest and start again. And this usually happens with lower ranking animals who are still learning, and they will do this again and again. So just a bit of an interlude. Hadida ibis flying. Long bills, and they will walk along the fields eating various Coleoptera larvae, just the same as she does. And they'll basically use their long bills like that, just sticking them into the ground, catching all sorts of juicy grubs. So it is not uncommon for the meerkats and yellow mongoose to be in the same area as the Hadida ibis in my experience. More so here than with the Kalahari subspecies. For those who've watched my previous videos, you will usually see me approaching a sleeping area later in the afternoon, just before, just after sunset. But of course, that is not the case now. This is what happens quite often in the middle of the day. And if it was colder, as I mentioned, we would not even be seeing the staying at the burrow. But this indicates to me that Gakulu has eaten very well today. She can afford to groom. She's highly alert. Why leave the safety of an escape area like this until it starts to get later, and then she may head to a sleeping burrow. Some more grooming, and it's just wonderful just to be here, to be able to share this moment with her, knowing that out of billions of people on the planet, I'm the only one next to wild yellow mongoose now, almost certainly. If there's anybody else who ever sees this video, you're welcome to comment. But I know most people who work with the different species that I study. I hear Telephorus zeylonis. There it is. The bok makiri. So named because the sound, which it is not currently making, sounds similar to the sound of the name. Bok makiri, bok makiri. There are many bird species that make this their home, because we have riverine ecology, succulent ecology, subtropical thicket, and macchia, the fynbos. 3 different floral zones that combine, and where they overlap, these ecotones are known as hotspots commonly. And we have a great floral diversity, attracting a vast faunal diversity as well. It's very peaceful. For anybody who's under stress, do yourself a big favor and get out in nature, even if it's only walking in a park or around a garden, and just unplug. the analytical side of the brain and just listen to the sounds. I promise you now, that is ecotherapy. It is incredibly beneficial to every single person. Many people forget we are nature. Think, oh, we separated from, we are nature. It's not, oh, we must go out into nature. We are part of it. And that is why there's this great disconnect that many people experience when they are away from nature for a prolonged period of time. And it has been shown, many observations, that people who spend more time in nature are far more relaxed. It lowers blood pressure and stress. And there's another urine mark. This is very interesting. That's 3 scent marks that she has made. Now, of course, she is posting very deliberately, and now it's not just a urine mark that is becoming a midden. So that's an extra long-term scent post. Zoom in. Look at that. You are indeed fortunate to be able to see so many scent mark behaviors happening. And again, as I've mentioned, not just randomly, they're in the same area again and again and again. So this is advertising. This is nature marketing. All right. I get the impression that we may be moving off from the burrow fairly soon. It's still fairly early in the day. Yeah. Let's see. Seoul is still skating high above the Great Black Mountain Range. But Kakulu is moving on. Starting to sniff at the ground. It's time to get some more snacks perhaps. Tsebokolodi. Tsebokolodi. A little sniff here and there, a little scratch. There we go. Let's zoom in on that. Two cheek marks, 2 rapid scent marks there. So a lot of scent marking attention has been given to this bolt hole. Perhaps there will be some migrant males who will then pick up on the scent and then follow it to where Kakulu is waiting for them. I really hope that is the case. It will be wonderful to document another generation of babies. Alright, this is the furthest she's moved away from the entrance of this bolt hole since we started filming here. I say we, I'm including you, the observers out there. Isn't it fantastic that we could be anywhere in the world right now and we're all sharing this experience together? I do enjoy that. I think it's incredibly powerful for nature conservation and sharing of information conservation through education. Another brief guard over there. If I was to upload this when I get back to the base, it will take almost 2 days already to upload this. So I'm just letting you know in advance when you see it, the date today is not going to be when you actually get to see it, because this is a much longer video, but I'm going to carry on filming. I like to have a variety of different videos for those who are still watching, and I do appreciate you being here with me. There are videos over a month in advance that I've uploaded already. And depending on what I see, I may upload different ones every day on top of those videos being already on the channel. And they're set to release at different times. For those who wish to support the channel, you can join as a conservation supporter member. It's a subscription, and it's basically less than a newspaper subscription every month. Really helps. Thank you so much for your support. And of course, you can visit the shop. There are many different merchandise types available, and they're delivered around the world directly from a company in America. Mongoose ones, Meerkat ones from my archives. They are original images from myself. And then, of course, the Stone Dojo Gym, which is also on the reserve. Right, this is the furthest she's been away, but she's been very careful about leaving the burrow and the safety behind. It looks like a little crater in the soil. Even though the fields are harvested here, they don't disturb the burrows. And this is an escape tunnel, what we call a bolt hole. Same with the meerkats, and they will also use this if they're in the area. This is prime real estate. But it is not a sleeping area unless an animal is trapped here by a predator overnight, for example. So this is active hunting. Look at how her ears are turned down towards the ground. The bat-eared foxes, which also live here, Ottosai and Megalotus, turn their huge satellite dish-like ears down to the ground. There was a brief lick of her nose, and again, and then a bit of auto-grooming. So she doesn't seem to be in any rush to move on. Just another reassurance. She's absolutely stunning. 5 toes on the front feet. Oh, a big yawn. Yeah, she's eaten well. And they have 4 toes on the back feet. All right, another guard. You may wonder what was calling. That was Francolinus capensis, Cape Franklin. Some call him spurfowl. It's an unusual sound here, hence her alert nature right now. It wasn't an alarm. If it was an alarm, she would not just be standing up briefly like that. She would have dived underground into that bolt hole within a second or less. All right, I can hear Cape turtle dove, Streptopelia capicola in the distance. Lovely warbly sound. Choo 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 choo. Bit of grooming. And the safety of the entrance there. It's a lovely little sheltered crater. Another scent mark. All right, now we have, as I was telling you earlier, here are the noisy neighbors. 2 of them have just landed on this field, and I mentioned they were coming across from their lek. 2 crowned plovers, and immediately, that's not an alarm. However, it can become an alarm. It becomes very rapid, and if Gakulu goes anywhere near where they are now, or I do, they will start dive bombing us. And they may also just fly away suddenly to draw attention away from a nest that could be nearby, or ground chicks that are unable to fly yet. Except they don't have any yet at this time of the year. And the birds are very quiet again, but that will change. You can be sure of it. These birds are very, very quick to alarm at any disturbance in the area. Alright, that brief flitter of yellow was a Cape weaver, Plosius capensis, not Plosius vellatus, the masked weaver. The males are completely yellow. They don't have the black mask of Plosius vellatus. Alright, I'm just going to let this video run until the phone storage is full, probably. This is probably about a 15 gig video already. It needs to be crunched and reformatted. Tsebokolodi. A brief sniff. Another cheek mark. By now, any viewers who are with me should be very familiar with this behavior. And a brief look away, again, displacement. Basically checking, oh, it's just you. And there we have one of the lovely insect hotels I have talked about in the past on Animal Adventures. Here you can see some more of them, brought in by the lovely little lawnmowers, the Katunguru cattle herd. Tsebokolodi. All right, let me zoom out. Tsebokolodi. Now, if I had to move suddenly or do something foolish, like make a sound that she's unfamiliar with, I could alarm her, and that would be terrible. It would destroy potentially months, even years of my work, but I have associations with the NLP that I can make immediately to overwrite that disturbance. This is fascinating to me to see that she's spending such a long time at this bolt hole system. Another brief sniff, scent of that. In case you're wondering, yes, these two entrances are in fact connected, and it is not at all uncommon for escape tunnels to have more than one entrance and exit, basically for safety purposes, because I have seen black-backed jackal, Canis mesomelas. Just a note on that, I see the scientific name for that has changed, even though scientific names are supposed to be basically the one name forever that you can learn. But anyway, black-backed jackal and Felis nigripes and Felis libica, small spotted cat and African wildcat respectively, will sit outside burrow entrances of meerkats in the Kalahari Desert, sometimes for half a day or longer, basically trapping the inhabitants there, because they will not come out and leave when the predator is so close. Oh, Egyptian geese, quick zoom pan up there. Again, Alopochin aegyptiacus flying past. I see many Harida ibis roosting already in the riverbed area. That is the Outeniqua mountain range. Meerkat Mansion Research Base is approximately 1 kilometer up that way. And there's another scent mark by Gakulu. I'm going to start moving off slightly. I'd like to see what happens with those crown plovers. Alright, I'm just going to announce my presence. I'm going to start walking up this way. Let's see what happens with the crown plovers. Kakulu won't spend too much longer at this burrow entrance because it is getting late and she never sleeps here in my experience with her. Oh, it is nice to stretch the legs. This is something many people take for granted. When you're doing wildlife research, there can be great discomfort for prolonged periods of time, especially if you're not able to move, because if you were to move, you could disturb the species you're studying. Many film crews that I've worked with from around the world, BBC, National Geographic, Discovery Channel and more, know all about that. And there we go. As soon as I get close, they are flying off. There's nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here. Follow me. You can check my channel for 2 videos I made fairly recently about these lekking birds. Again, Vanellus coronatus, crown plover. All right, and as suspected, there Kakulu is starting to move away from the entrance. So it wasn't too much longer to go before she was heading off, because we don't have much time left before sunset. So it's incredible how meerkats and mongooses, again, when I say mongooses, let me be particular here because it does vary. The species I've worked with, including banded mongooses in Uganda, Queen Elizabeth Park, Mongoose, Mungo, who live in groups of up to 60. All right, she is, let me just move my finger there. I won't edit that out, it stays as it is. Distant dog barking from noisy neighbors. It is a weekend now, so people are arriving from all over the place. Children are back from boarding school. There's a lot of celebration. Again, this is not something that disturbs the animals here. They are so familiar with it. Can you see her? Look how well camouflaged she is, even against the green. And if you did not know that she was there, it would be difficult to even have an idea that there was a mongoose walking along in this vegetation. I'm going to zoom out even further. Where is the mongoose? All right, frantic digging. And a brief guard. I, of course, must be very careful to be watching all around me as well as I move. I do not wish to go and disturb a snake that could be basking in the last rays of light here. I am no longer in the vicinity of the mongoose, or when I work with meerkats. As soon as you're not with them, you run a very high risk of standing on a snake or disturbing them. Because, of course, when you're with them, they are basically going to be your early warning detections. They will smell any snake presence long before they even encounter it. And that's a heads up to anybody out there who walks around in the field. Be very, very careful. Do not become complacent. I always look just ahead of me when I'm walking through an area on the ground. Because if you don't, and you're just looking ahead and watching a mongoose or meerkat and they've passed through an area, yeah, don't become a statistic. That's a bad career move. I've encountered hundreds and hundreds of snakes over the years. I've never had any dangerous encounters with any of the deadly snakes, even though any of them could have bitten me and killed me easily. Most snakes, as I've mentioned in many of my conservation videos, and a shout out to this one, the Bitus arictans video of the puff adder swimming. That is the second most viewed video on our channel now, with over 56,000 views. Of course, the Cape Cobra Najanivia video, 1.2 million views. And there we can hear the very raucous hardy-dahs as they head to roost. Yeah, there we go. All right, sun is definitely sinking quickly now. Look at that beautiful, beautiful lighting. And Gakulu is moving ahead much more rapidly now. It's time to go to get to the sleeping area. So, walk with wildlife. That's what I do. Now I am opposite and parallel to her. Even with this slightly zoomed out, it's difficult to pinpoint her. She's looking ahead very carefully which sleeping area she's going to return to today. For anybody who does get all the way to this 49-minute mark in the video, thank you so much for watching. Please do drop a comment, because you are basically having a crash course in being a research assistant. If you've watched this far, you will have been exposed to many different behaviors and, of course, typical data collection session. However, today I'm not doing that kind of data collection. I'm simply recording long-term demographics, the mortality, the natality, the birth and death rates, and range usage. Let's just have a look at this dig. This sharp angular dig over there is very typical of mongoose. So she has already been past this area earlier today. I can tell that is not older than a day because the sand around it is still very loose and crisp, as I call it. It has not been disturbed by the wind from last night. As I move, I'm making sure I make sounds to mask the crunching of the medicago here. What I will do is I will stop filming fairly soon with this long play, and I will do some short play videos, vertical format maybe, when I'm at the burrow. Again, thank you to everyone for your continued support. All the very best.